Hello everybody. I've recently learned that sadly the response feature, the video response feature on YouTube is going to be retired, which is a shame because I think it really adds to the social networking aspect of YouTube as a site. And I think apparently this is going on September the 12th, that's when they're getting rid of it. So for the next fortnight I've decided to pretty much only do response videos. So the first one is a response to a video by Grappling Ignorance called You're Not Helping. And in this video he outlines some of the bad arguments he feels that are made by atheists against the religious, ones that aren't really helping the cause of atheism, aren't really helping. I'll just go over the ones he mentioned. He mentioned this idea that religion is a mental illness, and obviously straight away I agree with him. Religion is not a mental illness. Just because someone is wrong about something doesn't mean they're mentally ill. There are much better explanations for why people are religious, usually to do with their upbringing or cultural conformity, things like that. Those are much better explanations than sort of layman diagnoses of mental illness. The other point he brought up was this notion that the non-religious are somehow more intelligent than the religious. There really isn't enough evidence to actually suggest that. Intelligence is something that's very difficult to gauge, so I agree with him. I agree with Grappling Ignorance about that. There really is. Also, I'd say theism and atheism are very, very broad categories. You know, it's very difficult to make sweeping difficult to make an accurate generalisation, if such a thing exists, about either category really. And the other one, earlier mentioned, I haven't actually really encountered myself, this idea evolution is a fact, not a theory. That's apparently not a very good way to phrase the argument. I've heard the creationist argument, obviously, of why is evolution just a theory. I've heard that a million times. I've not heard this fact, not a theory, but really it's a fact and a theory, and as he correctly points out. So yeah. But anyway, on to some of mine. These are some of the arguments I don't like hearing, or certain behaviours or I don't like from atheists, which I don't think are helping the cause against religion at all. Number one, spelling atheism with a capital A. Now, this is not just because I'm a bit of a stickler for grammar. Okay, although that does help. Atheism isn't a proper noun or a proper name or anything. It doesn't need a capital A. When we give it one, it gives the misleading impression that it is. One of the things I've always tried to insist to people is atheism is not a group. It's a lack of a group, specifically of the religious kind. You're not automatically part of a group just because you've left one group. You are groupless. You are outside of a group. So we don't capitalise what we are. You know, if I'm independent, I think put a capital I in front of that. If I'm independent of other companies, if I'm self-employed, I don't put or unemployed, I suppose, I don't put a capital U at the beginning of that. No, it doesn't need one. It gives it an atheism an official status. It doesn't have or need. I suppose it's different if you're talking about a group like American Atheists, which is an actual name of a group, then obviously you'd capitalise it, but I'll come back to them in a moment because they sort of tie in with one of my other points. Number two, pledging support for other irrational viewpoints. Good examples of this would be Bill Maher, I think if I'm pronouncing his name right, who supposedly did this movie Religulous. Never seen it, to be honest, heard about it a bit. So supposedly quite a famous, outspoken atheist, but apparently, as I understand it, is an anti-vaxxer, which is not only an irrational view, it's a very dangerous one to promote. Also Christopher Hitchens, again very outspoken, very influential atheist, but was a pro-lifer. He didn't seem to quite understand the pro-choice argument very well. The other things I hear about all these conspiracy theories, I've encountered atheists on YouTube and other areas of the internet that are believing in things like ancient aliens, and that apparently mainstream archaeology is covering up the evidence of this. I've also encountered atheists who believe in telekinesis and things like that. So these people really aren't helping. They're not helping to make atheism look rational at all, because a lot of the people involved in it are not. I suppose they are helping in the sense that they're making my first point a bit clearer, that, you know, atheism is not actually anything particularly special. It just means you're not part of a religion. Okay, point number three. appealing to the authority of famous atheists such as Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins. This is a problem I encounter a fair bit. If you're a Christian, it's quite common that you'll appeal to the authority of Jesus. You'll say, Jesus said this, Jesus said that, I do this because Jesus said to do this, or Jesus said it's okay. That to them is how their worldview works. Obviously they can't all agree on what Jesus said, because Jesus is an idea that exists in their head, not something that exists outside of it. But for the non-religious, we really don't have the luxury of doing that. Richard Dawkins or people like that do not have the final say on any of these matters. I think that people like Hitchens and Dawkins are very quotable. They've come up with some great phrases, some very neat phrases. I think they often put into words points a lot better than I can, points that I think, things that I've been thinking for a long time but I couldn't quite figure out how to put it into words. They seem to put it into words very well. So that's why I think they're very quotable. I understand completely why people quote them, why people share memes about them, but they don't get the final say on anything. You know, people have tried to mount this argument. They've said, look, Andy Dawkins said it, so that settled it. No, it doesn't. It doesn't settle the matter. His viewpoint is just another viewpoint. It may be a very well-informed viewpoint, but it's not an infallible one. So yes, you can quote people like Hitchens and Dawkins. I fully encourage you to do that, but they do not get the final say. There is no extra weight of authority to quotes by them, I'm afraid. I remember I was arguing with some nutcase on my one of my videos. He kept posting Hitchens links to me, posting Hitchens link after Hitchens link as though this settled the argument. I was like, it really doesn't. I'm afraid you need to present me some facts, not the opinions of a journalist, I'm afraid. Okay, number 4, atheists who presume to speak for all atheists. And you do hear this a fair bit. Atheists who use the word we when they're talking about what they as an individual, or possibly they and their immediate group of friends, may want. They say, we want this, we want that, we think this, we think that. You don't get to do that with a category like atheism, because tying in with my first point, atheism just means not being part of a religion, not believing in gods. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that you are automatically part of another group and that you share everything that group share, all the views that group has. Even if it were a group, even if you're talking about an actual group like secular humanism or something, again, you still can't really speak for the entire group on that many issues. You can only speak on what you know is agreed upon. And atheism is way too broad a category for everyone to agree upon anything other than that there's probably no gods. This ties into I was telling you my point about American atheists as well before. They do this. They've been doing this with this hoo-ha regarding monuments recently. They're putting things on their monuments saying things like atheists would rather build hospitals than churches. How do you know that? You don't just get to say all atheists are enthusiastic about hospitals being built. That's not a characteristic of all atheists. That's just really silly. Here we go. Number 5, the no true Scotsman fallacy. Now, I have heard this from people. They talk about atheists they don't agree with by saying, well, this person claims to be an atheist. You know, you could just say this person's an atheist. You don't need to say they're claiming it. Why would anyone who's not an atheist pretend to be one? I suppose there are certain circumstances where they might, but in a country like America, let's say, where there's a lot of prejudice against atheists and the vast majority of the population aren't atheists, I don't know why anyone who was not an atheist would claim to be one, unless they just really, really like the idea of being persecuted. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. But even somewhere like the UK, where atheism is a little bit more mainstream, even then, why is anyone going to pretend to be one? It just makes no sense at all. These people, just because someone doesn't agree with you, that doesn't mean they're not a true atheist. They're still an atheist, they just happen to disagree with you about something, tying into my other points that you don't get to speak for all atheists. And I've heard people saying this, that they're calling other people pretend atheists or not true atheists. I had someone, the same guy who was posting these Hitchens links to me, telling me I wasn't a true atheist, I couldn't possibly be an atheist, I must be a Muslim because I happen to speak up for the human rights of Muslim people, because I don't happen to believe in that Muslims are some sort of subspecies. You don't get to decide who isn't a proper atheist. You know, if someone doesn't believe in God, they're an atheist. You know, that's it. The sixth point is this one. I hear variations of this, but it usually runs along the lines of, I don't believe in God for the same reason you don't believe in Allah. And this, straight away, this is a problem for two reasons. Partly, Allah is usually the God that's chosen. Allah and God, the Christian God, are the same God. Allah means God in Arabic. It's not just a term used by Muslims when they're referring to God, it's also used by Christians who speak Arabic. They refer to God as Allah as well. So you're not talking about two different gods, you're talking about the same one. So for a start you need to substitute Allah with something else, Odin, Thor, someone like that. But the other problem really is the reasons Christians don't believe in other gods isn't quite the same as the reason that atheists don't believe in the Christian God. And that's because they have a rule that says they can't. They have a rule which says they can't have any other gods other than Yahweh. They can't have any others. So the reasons aren't quite the same. You could put something else supernatural in there, something irrelevant like goblins or dragons or something, although the Bible has dragons, so I suppose that wouldn't work. But yeah, it doesn't quite work, that argument. It's a little bit floppy. I don't think it's particularly good. So anyway, that's my list of things that I don't think are helping. Anyone got any comments or any feedback? Leave it in the comment section. Goodbye.